Jessica Quiros, a volunteer with the American Red Cross. Behind me is a burned area from a recent fire a little bit north of Los Angeles. This fire was contained before causing any lasting long-term damage to homes. But next time may be different. Wildfire season is here, and COVID-19 isn't going anywhere just because disaster strikes. That's why the American Red Cross is actively taking steps to make sure that shelters are a safe place for you and your family if you need to evacuate. To learn more, I met up with Nadan, a Red Cross disaster program manager.
Hey Dan, thank you so much for meeting with me today.
Hey Erica, thanks for being here.
Thanks so much. So, 2020, there's COVID-19, and now so many people in Southern California are kind of at the mercy of these wildfires.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want people to know before they come to a shelter and come to the Red Cross? How can you help them?
Right, well, first thing they should know is that the Red Cross is absolutely going to be there. So regardless of what's happening with the rates of COVID in the state, and if there are wildfires, that there are people displaced, the Red Cross is still showing up. Now, there's a couple different options depending on the situation. We might try and find hotels for everybody. We might see if people, we find some other alternate housing situation. But regardless, we'll be there with food, we'll be there with information, and we'll ensure that people have lodging. And if need be, we might actually even do a shelter.
Okay, so the shelters are kind of like a last resort. You would probably put them more in like a hotel or something beforehand.
Right. Right. So I mean, if we have other options, we would probably try and do that. The good thing about doing a hotel is everyone can be separated. They can stay with their families and not be as exposed to other people.
Mm-hmm.
But if that's right, if that's not realistic, then we can absolutely go into a shelter mode.
That's awesome. Could you walk me through a shelter?
Absolutely. Well, first thing you do is you actually check in right here.
Okay. Cool.
You'd come up, and the first thing we do is a health check. For the safety of everyone inside, we want to make sure that we do a health check and that we know that everyone coming in is healthy. We would actually pull out a thermometer like this one, do a quick screening, check your temperature, and ask a few questions. And once you pass that health screening, we bring you right in.
Okay.
Yeah. It's actually a pretty quick function. I can even show you. It only takes a second. And and it looks like you would be good to go.
Cool. All right, let's walk on in then.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Okay, so here is our registration table. When you'd first join up with us, you would send one member of your family up, and they would get you guys registered. While you're waiting, you can probably help yourself to maybe some coffee, some snacks. But as you can see, we have masks that are available. We have hand sanitizer. We have cleaning supplies. We can make sure that everyone comes in is able to, clean up a bit and make sure that everyone inside the shelter is wearing a mask at all times.
Okay, perfect. That's great to know that you guys provide that extra supplies if someone doesn't have something in their emergency kit too.
Right, absolutely. That's what we're here for. We're always preparing. So if somebody has their own cloth mask, that's great, but we also do have masks. We do make sure that everyone inside the shelter is wearing their mask so that everyone is safe.
Awesome.
All right, so just on over here, we have a lot of cleaning supplies. If needed, so cleanliness is going to be really, really important. We're going to be making sure that all things inside of the shelter are being cleaned down, that we're regularly wiping things down, and we want to make sure that it's a safe environment for everybody. So cleaning is going to be a big part of our shelters. Not that we weren't cleaning before, but we're really in overdrive now, making sure that everything is safe for all of the residents.
That's awesome.
Cool. And right over here, you see we have a little snack stand, a lot of pretzels right now, but we'll generally have a little bit more variety. We have a lot of different snacks we can have out. We'll have coffee, and we want to make sure that all these things are safe. So you can see we've got a lot of the stuff behind the screen. The reason we're doing that, want people to basically pick up what they're taking, and that sort of reduces the amount of particulates or anything that might be landing on things. So because there'll be a staff here that's sort of like manning this table, they'll make sure that everything is safe and that people aren't, touching everything. So
that's great to know.
Whatever snacks you get will be safe. So actually, I wanted to show you the cots as well. So we actually want to make sure that all the cots are spaced out. So everything is at least 6 feet at all times. That's really important because we want to make sure that people, even when they're sleeping, are still a good space away. People are still breathing. Sometimes people might, their mask might come off in their sleep. We want to make sure that people are safe and that they're not too close to one another. So all cots are spaced out. Normally we allow people to kind of push the cots where they need to inside of a shelter, but in this situation we're really going to try and keep them all spaced out as much as possible.
That's good to know.
Yeah. So.
And then you guys have these little blankets here just in case they
Yes, so the famous Red Cross blankets. Yeah, we absolutely do. So whenever you come in, you do get blankets. You'll make sure you'll have food, you'll have a safe place to be, and you'll have information because we always tend to have people from the fire department or whoever coming in and sort of talking about the situation. So it's going to be a great place to get information, to get food, and just a safe place where you can be with your family.
So I know some of these shelters are overnight. Is there always someone on the Red Cross or just staff available in case somebody needs them?
Absolutely. So there's always Red Cross staff here. The whole purpose of all of this is to make sure that these environments are safe and welcoming. When the disaster hits, we don't want people to be wondering where they're going to go. If there is a wildfire, the most important thing is that people get out of there. We need you to, we shouldn't have to worry about where you're going and if it's going to be safe and if your family's going to be safe from COVID. We want to provide a place that is safe and a place that you can get to very quickly, and that's open. So, there's always going to be staff here that'll be there to help you. They're up 24/7. There's always going to be a shelter manager. They're always friendly. You can wave to your shelter manager who will always be there and nearby, able to help whenever you need them.
Awesome. Well, if you could say one thing to the people who are kind of dealing with this, what would you say? What's that last thing that you would tell them?
Well, I just let everybody know that I know that these can be very scary times, but regardless of what's going on, the Red Cross will be there. If you have a disaster, if there is a wildfire, a house fire, a mudslide, anything, Red Cross is going to show up. And we'll have some sort of solution. It won't necessarily look like this. It depends on the situation, but we will be there. So we don't want you to be afraid of, coming out and asking for help. I don't want you to be afraid of, whether or not the environment's going to be safe for your kids. We're doing everything we can to make sure that, even people who have, even if you're a little bit more worried about COVID, health conditions or anything, we're providing as safe an environment as we possibly can.
Awesome.
So, as you can see, everything is ADA compliant. We have separate restrooms and showers for both the women and the men, and we do everything we can to make sure that the building is accessible and safe for everybody.
That's awesome. So, if you could just end with one thing, like what would you tell people listening to this? What would you want them to take away from this?
Well, I'd say the biggest thing is I hope they can see that we're taking every precaution that we can. We're doing everything everything that we can to make sure that the shelter is as safe as possible, and to make sure that people who are here, both the residents and the volunteers, are all as safe as we can be. Really, I don't want you guys to hesitate. I don't want anyone to sort of be afraid of coming out because they don't know where they're going to go. They don't know if that environment's going to be safe. If there's a wildfire, it's really important that you take your family and you get out of there. And the Red Cross will show up. It might not be this particular shelter. Every shelter looks a little bit different, and it might be a different situation entirely, but the Red Cross will be there to help out.
Yeah, and it definitely feels safe, and it feels like you guys really are prepared and trying to make people feel very comfortable. So, also just with people who are seeing this and maybe want to help out, how can they do that, and how can they be a part of helping others?
Well, a lot of the time when people want to help out, they tend to wait till the disaster happens, and they show up to the shelter and they're really gung-ho and they want to jump in there. But the problem is, there's background checks, you've got to have been trained, and a couple other things. So really, becoming a volunteer right now so that you can be on call and be part of the reserve for if there is a big disaster or wildfire, you're there to work in the shelter. So becoming a volunteer right now is a huge, huge help. And if you're not able to do that, even just making a donation, that also helps out in a big way for the Red Cross.
Well, that's awesome. It's good to know that people, even if they maybe have underlying health conditions or anything, they could still be a part of helping others
during these disasters.
Absolutely. You can donate, and there's also lots of different ways you can volunteer that are indirect as well.
Thank you so much, Nadan. I feel like just seeing this, seeing all the effort and love that people are putting into helping others,
it's very comforting to know. So really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Glad to have you down.
Thanks.
All right.
Cool.
Wildfires are increasing in size and intensity across the United States, and this trend is expected to continue. The Red Cross needs your help. To learn more, go to redcross.org.